Hi, it's Jon Binnie, and I'd love to share the answers to some questions from a beautiful soul, a beautiful friend. And these questions are one, who judges us? And then the second, uh, the other two are tightly coupled. One is, have I ever worked with Jesus? And then thirdly, what is Christ energy? So first of all, I'll just explain where I am. I'm in Belhaven Beach in Scotland, parked here in my camper van with my dog Patch here. And if I just do this, I can show you that is the Law Hill. It's a volcanic rock and it's in the town in North Berwick where I grew up. And then this is the Bass Rock, and the Bass Rock is also a volcanic plug. It's like the core of a volcano, and it houses the largest population of gannets, and they're like these giant, big, beautiful seabirds that colonize there. And you can't really see it. Well, you might be able to see a little bit of it. Where it's white, that's the gannet poo. So we're here in this very magical location. I've been here for a few days, just during the day, whilst our house having a new kitchen fitted. So it's an honor to be able to do work here on the move, being mobile. And so yeah, let's start with the question of who judges us. So the simple answer is we judge ourselves, um, and there are many self-correcting um, mechanisms in the universe. So if you think of first of all, uh, to explain like free will, like I know that every living thing and everything is living in this universe has its own free will. And so when you have your own free will, you get to choose whatever you want to do as a unique individual soul. And then whenever someone or something stops you from making that decision, prevents you from achieving your free will, then what happens is that that being, that energy, that entity that tries to stop you or stops you from executing your right of free will, there's a karmic consequence. So it creates karmic debt for that being, for that person to then have to pay back. Um, Of course, that's all of that kind of knowledge and belief system is a whole video in itself, but I just wanted to lay down some of those founding principles to help you understand some of the next parts, which is in order to judge ourselves, we throughout our lives, we're constantly subjecting ourselves to choices to make in every single given moment. It's just like here I am in my camper van choosing to make this video for you, and at the same time, there's this there's this impact that we have on others when we make those free will choices. So, for example, I'm aware that there are three motorhome spaces here, and although I came early to come and get a space, perhaps another family would come along and they'll want to get to use one of the spaces in their motorhome, and they won't be able to because I'm sat here. Is it right or wrong that I'm here with my dog for a few hours or not? And that there's more people that may, you could argue, benefit from also using the space. It's That's a judgment, right? And so, um, I have a right to be here. Like I pay an annual pass to be here. It's like it's free to first come first served. And at the same time, I just know that there's it's my free will to want to be here. If someone came along and said, "No, no, I've got like a bigger family than you. I need to have the space more than you," and force me to leave, it would be against my free will. Now, these seem like quite small and petty things, but they're just examples of you know the decisions that we have in our lives, and also just acknowledging that um, a lot of the kind of laws and rights and guidelines or rules that we end up having to obey as humans, they don't always like totally align with the universe's intentions. So, or the kind of rules of free will, if you like. And so, just because it might be legal to do something to someone else doesn't mean to say that you are violating or not violating a universal law of like violating that person's free will. And so that's also, important to acknowledge. Um, can we all do whatever we want? No. um, uh, can anyone do what they want to me? No, because I have my own boundaries. And so the way I see this is that, um, like in my quantum energy healing work and protection the and I teach this to people as well, is I create like this when we start our sessions, when our work each day, I create this golden bubble around ourselves, and it's about 2 meters out from the center of our hearts, above, below, to the sides, front and back. And so that golden bubble is the outside of the auric field, so like the very outside of our energetic field that surrounds each of us. And I see that as my dominion. So my auric field is my part of the space-time continuum of this quantum universe. It is my energy field. And so I get to decide what enters this energy field and what doesn't. Um, and so anything that violates that will accrue karmic debt, and anything that I allow in doesn't. And then there's this kind of whole gray area, and I think the gray area is where, somewhere between dark and light, uh, where we as humans in particular end up kind of being programmed or programming ourselves to um, to be like how to describe it, to sleepwalk into giving our permission or giving our power away. And so examples are, a lot of the control that's going on the planet right now. Um, when we're not totally conscious of the decision we're making, um, then we can very easily just allow ourselves to implicitly give permission or explicitly give permission without consciously knowing it, almost like a subconscious action. Um, I'm trying to think of examples that won't result in this video being banned. Um, if I, if I think of things like, uh, the rules that I would perhaps follow in my corporate job, and I just have 4 days left before I leave that career, um, then those rules, they're like programmed into you when you first start the company, and uh, they're like leadership principles and ways of working, and they become like a kind of set of guardrails, like the railway tracks that you then deliver your work, your services to customers. Um, and once you allow that programming in, you're setting that clear direction for yourself, and that it constrains you from stepping out of those railway tracks. But after years of doing it, and I've been 8 years in that company, um, you become indoctrinated in these methodologies. And so you're effectively kind of sleepwalking into the fact that you're constraining yourself. And so you just start each day, you go, that's my job, these are the things I do. I'm only allowed to stay on these railway tracks, and you just keep going in that direction. Um, so yeah, I think that's really helpful to see that like you end up giving like implicit um, approval to these things. And there's other examples like, when you sign up for an online service, for example, maybe you're signing up for like a video streaming service or a new product, and it says tick here to give consent. Like when you tick here, and the tick here represents like a very long list of things that you agree to, you are literally agreeing to them. Like you are energetically in this universe agreeing to them. And so whatever's written there, you've said, yep, I'm good to go. And I remember years ago, a company trialed adding some text that say, I sell my soul. I don't sell my soul, by the way. I'm just saying that those were the phrases that were used. And people were ticking it, like hundreds of people were ticking and signing up their souls away. So yeah, don't do that. Like it's your soul, you want to keep it. Um, okay. Uh, so let's um, focus on the judgment part now. So there's all these things that I do in my life. I do to myself, I do to others, how I make people feel when I do things. And, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I'm 47. I've had 10 different like corporate jobs that and small startups. I'm a father, a husband. I've been in many music bands. I've traveled loads of the world. I've had a really fantastic life and a lot of trauma too. Um, but every interaction that I have with others, I have an effect on someone. And so what I feel happens when I die in this lifetime, or at least this, that John dies and my soul continues on, um, is that I go through this experience of having all those times that I made someone feel in a certain way, and the consequences of that, like being replayed to me. And they're replayed to John and my soul as well. So my soul basically said to, you know, uh, incarnated, agreed to this incarnation of John. And so John has to come down to Earth at this time and live out this lifetime and learn all these things and to ideally help my soul to grow. And then at the end, when I return back to source, back to the light, I end up in this situation where I'm really given the opportunity to reflect on that growth, all the things that went well, all the things that didn't go well. And that's often through like replaying those scenarios of how I get to learn how that made other people feel. And it's also like it balances the energy. Um, and what I love about all this, this is a lot of words, right? And it's a lot of kind of mental models and beliefs and knowings. What I just want to hold space for is that the ramifications for this are really, really powerful. And I find non-judgment much, much easier because of this. Um, Another big thing as part of judgment for me is that I see all beings, all living things, um, all energy in a spectrum. And the spectrum goes from the darkest dark to the lightest light. The darkest kind of evil to or absence of love through to the highest love. And that every being in the universe has this whole spectrum of the opportunity to extend to it. And something that as humans are incredible at, is being able to embody that full spectrum. And in fact, we can embody it like an hour, right, or in a moment, or in like a present moment. Like we can have a whole mix of emotions all at the same time. And so when it comes to judging others, like I don't know what it is as part of the human um, condition, but we seem compelled to want to judge each other all the time, to judge ourselves. And, oh, I made a mistake. Like making a mistake is a judgment, right? Um, and there's also magic in those words, and that if you say to yourself, "I made a mistake," uh, you know, it's really important to also acknowledge that you have the opportunity there to learn a lesson. Every mistake is like the door to a lesson, right? Are you going to open that door and learn that lesson each time? That's really powerful and important. Um, and so, yeah, being intentional with your words also helps a lot with, when you find yourself trapped and or falling into these judgments. Um, yeah, when I do client sessions, the things that I've done hundreds of sessions now. I was trying to think somewhere between 300 and 400 sessions, and we go through people's lives, and we go through their past and parallel future lives, and we go to the highest dimensions of this universe, and we go to the lowest, to hell as well, and back. And I go there with my client, and I always feel like the sessions always bring such context to why. So when you understand why, it's quite hard to judge, right? It feels like it kind of erodes the judgment. Like you say, well, I'd love to think that I would never do those things, that, someone's done something very negative in this life or another life. But at the same time, you know, we can all be triggered. Often, it's in cases where we're defending our loved ones or doing things for others, that we end up in these situations where, we do things that later. results in trauma for ourselves. And so I always am a big believer in like non-judgment in these sessions, because I don't go in with judgment and say that's a bad thing to do. Like you never should have done that. Um, it seems like a really useless thing to share, an opinion on. And I genuinely don't really form opinions. They're just fact. And you would not believe, I say that like it's not very helpful wording. There is a massively broad range of experiences that people have. And so, um, you know, destruction of planets and universes and entire races and multiple people and, you know, people of all ages or beings of all ages. Like these are all things that happen in these sessions because they've happened in or are happening in our past and parallel lives. And also to the opposite, to good. I did a recent client session where they're here to help save like the future of uh, an entire galactic race, and that is incredible. And they're already like doing a fantastic job. So all these experiences are equal. Where all our souls are choosing to come into these lifetimes to learn. And I also see that when I'm doing negative entity removals, for example, often not always, but often the reason that like if an entity is like attached to someone's heart is causing that person challenges, and what happens is the entity is often like a kind of temporary like sticking plaster. I see them like a little leech, for example, like on your heart, and it would be like feeding on the feeding on negative energy and growing with negative energy, and sometimes provoking the person to feel negative so that it can feed more. And that's like a pretty negative thing to do, right? Doesn't seem like it could be for someone's highest good. But when we go to the session and I remove it, often I get like this little message from the being itself or from Archangel Michael, who I work with, and often it's for a higher purpose, to bring the person's attention to their hearts, to really help them connect and to help them um, to heal. And although the actual act of that being you could judge as being a very negative thing, it seems like quite balanced that actually on the plus side, that trauma that the person experienced, that negative behavior, also resulted in a really beautiful, like highest good for them once it's removed. Let's get a drink in a sec. Try and knock over my camera. Okay, um, let's talk about Jesus. what what an amazing segue. I will explain myself a little bit. I do not consider myself religious. I was taught as a young child. I don't know, maybe it was I would have been in primary school. So maybe up until the age of like 7 or 8, maybe a little bit older. Sometimes my family would go to church. I remember we'd go uh, to church with school. I guess that's what schools did. And it used to go fairly regular, like maybe like once a month or once every couple of months. And we would, um, and for a brief period, um, my mum would ask me to go to Sunday school, where we'd learn about, we'd do some singing and learn about the Bible, um, and just learn more about Christianity. And af like I enjoyed like meeting with the people and the stories. But after a while, it didn't really resonate with me, and I asked no longer to go. And I remember my mother would say to me, "Or you could just like read the Bible if you didn't want to go." Then it's kind of stopped. Like it was a very kind of like short-lived um, experience with religion, and I felt like actually it was quite helpful because I got to learn about Christianity, and it's still very dominant in the UK. But yeah, since then I just don't really I don't feel that my belief systems um, are like particularly aligned or resonate with any one religion. And I consider myself to be open to all of the teachings of all religions, and to get the best of, whatever resonates with me and my highest good and the highest good of all. So the question of Jesus, like, have I worked with Jesus? Very briefly, I this was last year. Um, I did purposefully go into meditation and ask to speak to Jesus, and I just asked to like see him, and and to say hello, and to like primarily to like to feel his energy and to get to know him. And when he came through, like, it was a really profound experience, because as a being, he was very light. And it's quite funny. Like, I remember, like, he's kind of like, it looked, this might make a bit of noise on the microphone, so sorry about this. But yeah, like, he had a kind of hood up like this, and he's very in this like really white light kind of gown that he was wearing, and a very bright light. And he didn't say a lot, but his what he said through his energy was quite incredible. And he just said, look, um, he just brought forward this really incredibly powerful energy, but with such grace. Like, like his skin and his clothes were like very kind of like very silky. Like, you could, um, yeah, I feel like silk is really important, because it's like silk is, being strong and yet soft to the touch. And so that's how his, very grace, like grace was an incredible feeling that he exuded. And he wanted me to feel that, because a lot of what I do, although I'm, generally quite a soft, loving person, there's a lot of drive and tenacity in me. And he was showing that strength can also be um, in this grace and receiving also. That was really it. um, that's all I asked to speak to him. And it was helpful for me, because I've had, it's probably a whole other video, but in other past lives, I've had challenges with institutions, with religions, and I've rebelled against them a lot. I've kind of gone through cycles of being in religions, and then, like, being like a monk hundreds of years ago, for example, and then, or a priest, and then, following a kind of similar pattern to what I'm doing at the moment, like channeling, spirit, channeling source, or I would have said God in those lifetimes. And then others, like, really rebelling against that and saying, like, you're not speaking to God, all this kind of stuff. So, feeling threatened by it. And then me ended up being persecuted, or, being killed or dying. And then I'd come back. Some lifetimes I came back, and I'm not proud of it, right? But I'd come back and I would like hunt down the people that, destroyed, or the souls that were now incarnated in these people, hunt them down, and take revenge. And then I'd have like a kind of another lifetime afterwards of paying the price and doing all the hard work and getting the forgiveness, and sometimes like living in solitude as well. And then that cycle would repeat. It's like, it's okay, I'm ready to like be assimilated into a world again, and and receive this higher divine wisdom and messages and healing abilities, but do it in a way that integrates, and is the most use and most helpful for all. Um, so yeah, that was really powerful and really interesting. To I'm trying to say, I was like reconnecting with my ability to talk to highly religious figures. And just as we started this session today, and as I was setting it up, I was also asking like about Jesus, and he's just like, it shouldn't matter like who it is that you call forwards, or who you reference. Everyone is equal, and Jesus as a human was very much equal to me, to everybody. And so he wants us to see that. So much of his teaching is that, you are me, you will be me, um, and that it's important that you see all these magical things I can do, and see that this is you also. So that's Jesus. That's have I worked with Jesus. Uh, Christ energy. Let me talk about that. So the third and final question. Um, I don't have a strong opinion about Christ energy. To me, it is the energy of source. Um, it is the same energy that flows through us, or a kind of derivative of it that flows through us, like chi, reiki. I'd call it like a quantum um, energy, or our light body, as I refer to it as. Um, people do talk about Christ energy, and I feel like there are lots of different labels for quite similar or the same energy. And but I do feel that I don't want to overly simplify things, because I do know that um, when you set the intention to label something, to describe it as something, it has this kind of co-manifesting, co-creation aspect to it. So let's say, I don't know, let's take this mug, right? It says something funny about farting, but let's imagine, right, that we could say that this mug is full of water, right? Or we could say, you can just see it there. You can say this mug is full of coffee. Um, Now, at the moment, when you can't see what's in it, and now you know there's coffee in it, imagine it was just water in it. If I said to you, "Hey, would you like a drink of this water?" You'd be like, "Yeah, sure." Um, if I said, "Would you like to have a drink of this water?" but then you tasted it and it was actually coffee, it's like a kind of mislabeling aspect to it, right? Now, the reality is that water, you have to use a lot of water in coffee, but they are different. There are different aspects to it. There's an additional property of the coffee bean, or in this case, a coffee bag, which we're going to drink. And it's quite funny. It's ironic because it's actually quite watery coffee and it's cold. Um, but if you label something as something else, if you pretend that it's something else, it actually creates it as that thing that you're pretending it to be. Um, and so I think that it's so helpful when, like, each of us have our own definition of the universe, of our own universes. And so um when you describe Christ energy, or God, or source, um or whatever, or the highest love, or whatever definition you would give, your definition, the words you use, and then the feelings that you attach to those words, and this kind of mental model that this projects out through your consciousness into the universe, has a dramatic effect on what that is. And so it's not helpful for me to describe Christ energy, chi, Reiki, quantum energy, light bodies, all these different energy forms as the same thing, because they mean something different to each person. And when each person receives the words that I say, and then the energy that I put behind it, and the intention, then they will like receive what uh, that intention feels like. Um, and so, yeah, I just want to call a spade, and if you believe in Christ energy, and it's a term that works for you and it feels good for you, then of course, use it, but call it that when you work with someone else. I personally don't work with Christ energy. I don't call it the energy that I work with, Christ energy. But if that's what resonates with you, you can choose to work with Christ energy, of course. But I would never say to you, "Oh, I work with quantum energy. It's exactly the same as Christ energy," because I don't think that's true. Like, I think that the words are different for a reason. For me, uh, and whilst they might actually be, who knows, as we all learn over the coming years and months and decades and eons, that all these things are the same, then fantastic. But whilst our intentions, our understandings, and our mental models are different about these different labels, it has an effect on making these energies different. So that's really important to understand. So we're almost up on 30 minutes. And I just wanted to thank my dear friend Nova for asking. these questions. It's really enjoyable. I've been healing here for the last couple of days and really reflecting on my life and the big dramatic changes. About to leave my corporate job. I'm just very excited and feeling like this is something I love doing. So yeah, if you have any questions for me, uh, ask John. Yeah, let me know what they are. Add them in the comments. And I'd love to do another video. I love doing these. And right at the start, just before we started, I did invite Jesus into the safe space of this session. And he was very obliging. And so that's the second time I guess I've worked with him. And so thank you for that opportunity. And thank you to all the souls that participated in today's session. Thank you so much. Sending my love from Scotland. Take care. Love you.